Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to make another June on the Range video, but it is not a book reaction. It is actually a movie reaction. Earlier this month, I read my first entry for June on the Range, and it was my first Western ever, and it was Louis L'Amour's Hondo, written in 1953. I will put a link to my reaction to this book. In short, I liked it a lot. It was great. It was a great introduction to both Louis L'Amour and the Western genre, and just a great first entry for June on the Range, and made me excited to be participating in June on the Range. But today I'm actually going to talk about the 1953 movie starring John Wayne, Hondo, about the same story. Now, you might think that this is a adaptation of the novel, but actually that's not the case. Both of these stories were based on a 1952 short story by Louis L'Amour. And the next year, in 1953, they made the movie. And this is, I guess, technically a novelization of this movie. Now, for me, since I read the book first and then I saw the movie, in my head, the movie is an adaptation of the book. That's kind of how I'm treating this. But this did come out second. Actually, on a brief side note, it is actually very similar to my favorite movie of all time, 2001: A Space Odyssey. The movie directed famously by the great Stanley Kubrick, and the book, which actually came out later, written by the great Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke wrote a short story, and I hope this is right. I think it was called The Sentinel. I'm sure I've read that story a long time ago. They adapted the short story together, Kubrick and Clarke, into a story that would eventually they went their separate ways. Clarke turned it into a novel. Stanley Kubrick turned it into the greatest movie of all time. And in that case, I like the movie better than the book. Actually, as far as the Space Odyssey books go, I actually like the second one better, 2010. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make is, that's a situation where I like the movie better than the book. However, here I did end up, even though I like the movie, I think the book is better, and I will tell you why. The first thing that struck me about this, when I was reading the novel, I had a hard time envisioning John Wayne in the lead role. Of course, I knew that John Wayne was in the movie. Hondo is he's part Apache, and John Wayne just that didn't make sense to me. I could not see John Wayne as this character. I mentioned in my other video, if I were casting the movie, I would try to find someone that was maybe a bit more like, say, Charles Bronson, or someone like that. So I had trouble seeing John Wayne in the movie role. Now, he shows up immediately. First scene, he shows up. And as soon as he starts saying Hondo Lane's lines that were, directly from the book. Again, if I say from the book, I know the book is actually from the movie, but you get what I mean. When he starts saying Hondo's lines, I got it. Okay, great. All right. John Wayne, he does work as this character. Hondo Lane has a very short, clipped, blunt, to the point way of speaking, and John Wayne he's great at that. So the dialogue from the book, John Wayne delivers it very, very well. I do think that, and I'll mention this again later on, but I do think if you were to remake this movie, and I think there's some other aspects that I think this would make a great remake. If I were to recast this, I would not find another John Wayne-esque actor. I would find, again, someone more like a 60s, 70s Charles Bronson. And I would try to, sell the fact that this character is part Apache. Play that up. I didn't really get that from John Wayne, as compelling as he was in the movie. Another aspect of the book that I thought was just overall better was the action. The book starts out with a great action scene, where where Hondo, he's by himself in the desert. Well, he and his dog Sam are in the desert, and he comes across some Apache warriors, and then there's eventually they get too close, and a gunfight starts. And in almost every action scene in the book that involves Apache, after the initial shooting, everyone just drops to the ground, and it's described as the Apache are able to just vanish and disappear. I mean, they can be 25 yards away, and they just drop, and you can't see them anymore. And that, in all the action scenes where that happens, it adds a level of tension that I think is very effective, and I found very compelling. Unfortunately, so the movie does not start out with that same intro scene. The movie does not have that element in there. In no action scene in the movie do you have that element where the Apache are described as just vanishing. I mean, they could be right there, and then they just melt into the desert, and you don't know where they are. The movie has none of that. There's a big action scene in the end, and actually one aspect of the book that I really liked is there are some action scenes, but the big, huge battles, besides the one at the end, but there's two big battles in the book where you don't really get a lot of details. They're not the main focus of the story. The fighting between these Apache tribes that have banded together and the U.S. cavalry. That's not the main focus of the story. The main focus of the story is the love story, which, by the way, I'll get to that, but the movie, I think, does that very well. But to return to the action, there is a final action scene both in the book and the movie. And again, with this element of the Apache have the ability to, they can charge. As soon as they face fire, they drop, and then it's almost like the battlefield just gets quiet. And there's a little bit of movement. The cavalry can, maybe they shoot at movement. Did they hit anyone? They don't know. And then the charge just comes, and it's very exciting. The movie, the end action scene, again, this is not a big spoiler. Of course, there's going to be a scene like this. It's the classic cowboys and Indians shootout where, in this case, the cavalry, they have covered wagons and they circle up, and the Apache are kind of circling them on horses. And, scenes like this, I've never found that compelling in Westerns. I always like, gunfights, the quick draw. The quick draws you'll see in a Sergio Leone spaghetti Western, or shootouts with criminals you'll see in a movie like Rio Bravo. I've never found these big, huge action set pieces where you got the covered wagons in a circle, and the Indians are, it's cowboys and Indians, and they're circling around the covered wagons. I've never found that compelling, and this is how this movie ends. The action will often, you do get, in the movie, you do get close-ups of, characters, and they have their little story in the battle. Like, you'll see one guy shooting, and then he gets hit by an arrow. You'll see the lieutenant who's been injured already. He's all bandaged up, and, you see him and how his battle plays out. Of course, you see Hondo, what happens to him is a close-up in the battle. But the editing always will cut away from the action to a big wide shot of that covered wagon circle with horsemen running around. And I don't like that. I don't like when, we get up close and then we keep going back. I don't, I understand in the 50s it was a very common thing to do. I don't find that editing style in these action scenes that compelling when we just keep removing ourselves from the action. I think Alfred Hitchcock, he called that Westerns when he talked about bar fights, where you see the fight happening in a big wide shot. Whereas Alfred Hitchcock, he wanted to go montage. You get up close into the fight. And that's how I would shoot this scene. Just stay up close. We don't need to see the big wide shot. Big wide shots work, I think in like maybe a martial arts movie where you're seeing a lot of choreography, when it's almost like a dance. That's when the wide shot works. I think in an action scene, you get up close and you keep it close and you keep it, personal. And that's when you really feel the violence of the action. So, I didn't find that, I got kind of bored at the end. But going to the parts of the movie that I did like, I mentioned, even though I would recast not really a John Wayne type, he was good in the movie. He was very compelling. The other main lead of the movie is an actress by the name of Geraldine Page. She plays, the names, I hope I get this right, Mrs. Lowe. I think that's right. If I'm messing up the character's name, I apologize. But But Geraldine Page is excellent in this movie. And immediately, I think especially if you're a male viewer, which I'm sure if you're watching a Western, many of you are probably male viewers, you will notice she's, I want to say this nicely, but she is no Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly, of course, starred in High Noon. She's no Angie Dickinson, who starred in Rio Bravo with John Wayne. She describes herself in the movie. The character describes herself as homely. He's like, I know I'm homely, she says in one scene. And so that's it. You immediately, just as a male viewer, I noticed that. I'm like, she's no Grace Kelly. As the movie goes on and as she interacts with John Wayne, they have excellent chemistry. And I think there's an electricity between John Wayne and Geraldine Page in these roles that is very compelling. And, it's no surprise that these characters fall in love. That, the main core of the movie is their love story. And the movie, it's great in the book, and the movie nails it. It does a very good job. The actors play very well, against each other. And it does not surprise me. I found out that Geraldine Page, she was nominated for Academy Awards several times, and eventually she won the Academy Award. And I don't know, Best Leading Actress, Best Support. I'm not sure what she won it in, but she won in 1985. That doesn't surprise me at all. She is excellent in this movie, and she and John Wayne work very well together. The other big character is the son. Again, the name of the actor, I'm not sure. The name of the character, I'm not sure. I can't remember, but he's great. He's just like in the book. He does a fine job. He's a character that he has many different father figures. He has his own father, who's a deadbeat. He has both Hondo Lane and Vitero, the Apache chief, who kind of become surrogate fathers. And he works very well with both of them. Just like in the book, he's great. The actor that plays Vitero, and I apologize, I only looked up Geraldine Page's name. The actor that plays Vitero, I like the idea of his character. I like that he comes in, he's an honorable chief. Geraldine Page's character, she has to try to keep the peace between the Apache tribes and protect her ranch. So she's walking a very fine line. And that character is interesting. And he befriends the son. He calls him Small Warrior, makes him a blood brother. That's very cool. I will say, the actor's performance, I'm not a big fan of it. The idea of the character is good. The execution, I don't know. I don't think it was bad. It was just, I didn't find it very compelling. Other than that, that's all I really have to say about it. If you want to read a Western and you're new to Westerns, definitely check this out. This is a great one to read. As far as Western movies, this is good. As far as John Wayne movies go, it's no Rio Bravo. It's no The Searchers. It's a step below those movies. But it's good. And as I mentioned, if Westerns were to ever make a comeback, by the way, I'm recording this. I think today is the day that the new, I don't know what it's called, there's a new Kevin Costner Western in theaters. I would like to try to go see that this weekend. I am very busy. Maybe that will bring Westerns back and bring it back. And maybe someone will get the idea that, maybe we'll, make a new version of Hondo. So if you made Hondo again, I would, as good as John Wayne is, I would make the lead character a bit more believable as part Apache. Play up the Apache-ness of the character. And I would include those action scenes where the characters have this almost incredible ability to just melt into the desert and build tension in between the action. Get the action quiet and then build the action back up. This movie had a kind of a missed opportunity that this could have done. But that's really all I have for say for it. It's a good movie. Check it out if you want. If you like John Wayne, check it out. But that's all for now. Thank you.